My greetings to you, friends. Are you ready for a tale? Ah, wonderful! Now, for you I have an old tale from Avalon that shows how fear can get in the way if you don't... But I'm getting ahead of myself again, aren't I? So, if you're ready, I'll tell you the tale of the Cave of Whispers. Ha Once an age ago, in the lands before the clans, there was a small and forgotten village that, despite all its joys, the elves there lived under the constant danger of an unknown beast. For just outside of the village there stood a darkened cave that roars flowed out of, both day and night. How the elves of the village wished and just longed to ignore that most foreboding roar. But sadly, the river from which they got their water ran some way past the cave. This meant that every day one of them would have to creep past the mouth of the cave to bring back the day's water. After many years, the cave became known as the Cave of Whispers, due to the advice given to every elf who went for water. Be no louder than a whisper, lest the roar giver hears you. This was the accepted way of things for many a year, until the days of a young elfling called Ferrell. Now, Ferrell was chosen to be the water bringer on account of him being sure and light of foot. He gladly took up his responsibility to keep the whole village watered. But with each time that he passed the Cave of Whispers, a question would grow louder in his ears. What beast roars both day and night? But no one dared to speak of the cave any more than was needed, thinking it best to just ignore it. So the question was left to grow louder and louder in Ferrell's ears, until in the presence of his uncle it spilled out of his mouth. What is roaring in the Cave of Whispers? His uncle stood shocked for a moment, then looked to see if they were truly alone, and only once he was sure did he answer in hushed tones. I've always thought it'd be a roar of a troll myself. So be no louder than a whisper, lest the roar giver hears you. The next day, as Ferrell crept past the Cave of Whispers to fetch more water, he thought of the troll. With its brutish strength, its grasping hands, and its hunger for elven flesh. But why would it be roaring both day and night? The troll mustn't be able to see in the dark, and he's roaring for all the pain of crashing into the stone. Ferrell told himself. This only kept the question quiet for a day, before it started to become louder and louder. Once again, the question escaped from him again as he was with his mother. What is roaring in the Cave of Whispers? His mother was taken aback and looked to see that no one else was in earshot, and only once she was sure did she answer in a guarded voice. It could only be a Grilfy, so be no louder than a whisper, lest the roar giver hears you. The following day, as Ferrell fulfilled his duty, he stopped and stared into the Cave of Whispers and thought of the Grilfy. with its burning eyes, its black coarse fur, and its baleful breath. But why would it be roaring both day and night? The Gwylfi can only set upon those it comes across in the dark. That's why it's roaring. No elf has gone in there in generations. Ferrell told himself that this only kept the question quiet for another day before it started to become louder and louder once again. The question jumped out from his mouth as he was sat with his grandfather. What is roaring in the Cave of Whispers? His grandfather pulled him close and breathed.
Will you not confront the dragon? Be no louder than a whisper, lest the roar giver hears you.
And then said no more. On the day that followed, Ferrell stood before the mouth of the Cave of Whispers and held his ears to the roar flowing out and peered into the darkness. But the old tales say to confront the evil that's hidden in the shadows. So why shouldn't I confront the dragon, despite its tearing claws and no matter its bladed fangs, and I will guard against its blazing breath. I will find the roar giver. Evil once known can be stopped, and no more will its roaring plague both day and night. With such resolve beyond his years, Ferrell stepped into the roaring darkness of the Cave of Whispers. His steps were brave, but not foolish, as he went deeper and deeper into the cave, guarding himself from every shadow. His eyes grew stronger in the darkness. But he saw no troll, or Gwylfi, or even a dragon. Only great rocks that stood on both floor and ceiling, stretching towards each other like clasping fingers of giant hands. But despite the absence of any fiend or horror, the roar still filled the cave. Ferrell began to notice that these stretching rocks were wet with water. So too was the very air, and his clothes were as if he had been walking in the rain. But how could that be? There are no clouds in a cave. Not only that, but the roaring had grown to the point of a deafening rage. As Ferrell came to a bend in the cave, he knew that whatever beast that roared both day and night, be it a troll or Gwylfi or dragon, would be round that corner. So, mustering his courage, he headed to face the roar giver. What was round the corner took his breath away. It wasn't a troll, as his uncle had said, nor was it a Gwylfi, as his mother had thought. Neither was it a dragon, as his grandfather had feared. But there before his eyes was a truly enormous waterfall. The water rushed down at such great speed into a great hole in the cave floor that plummeted down and down into endless darkness. As its roar echoed and rose up from that darkness, sending a never-ceasing roar bouncing throughout the cave and out to the village. Ferrell stood and stared at this wonder for the longest time, letting the spray of its cool crystal waters wash over him, until a question grew louder and louder in his ears. Why not get our water from here? And that is what the village now known as Roaring Falls did. even to this day and age. Well, you see, if that village had confronted their fears generations back, they would have had that cool and crystal water much sooner, and not had to go through all that "be no louder than a whisper lest the roar giver hears you" nonsense. Oh, it's always best to seek out the truth instead of ignoring something and letting the fear grow. Well, it's a good thing for them that brave fellow came along, eh? Now, what I seek is if you have any stories or ideas of bravery overcoming a mystery or two. If so, then do email bard.elven.tales@gmail.com and I'll turn it into a video like this one, eh? Oh, and do also remember to like, share and subscribe to this channel. It's a great help and it will spread the word of these tales, or so my rectangular fellow here tells me. So, I'll see you soon for more Bard Elven Tales. Ha ha!